I need to design some rudders for two little Sunfish boats that I picked up off Craigslist. They just came with the hull, so they didn't come with anything else. And new rudders are pretty expensive. So out of a piece of pine, we're going to make up the actual blade. And then as far as the connection to the boat, we're going to use some 3-inch PVC, heat it up, make some flat panels, and build a bracket to go on the back of the boat. Old piece of scrap PVC that was used for some different projects. Make sure that the PVC is not the foam core. This is solid PVC. The foam core is a lot lighter, but since we want to heat this and bend it, we want to make sure that that's not foam core. That's our heating jig. We're going to put the piece in there, heat it up with a heat gun, and flatten it out. This whole project should be a whole lot cheaper than buying an off the shelf unit. Probably just a few bucks in parts. We've cut down our PVC pipe down to something that will fit inside of our heat can. So the next thing is to cut a slice in the PVC down through here. We'll put that in the can, heat it up, and then we can open it up and flatten it out. We made our slice. The way I do this on the sliding miter saw is to hold this down with a stick. You can clamp this down so that that's secure. Keep your hands clear. The PVC is heated and taken out of that can. This is our high-tech flattening jig. 2 pieces of wood. The wet noodle PVC goes there, and we just stand on it. Within about 30 seconds to a minute, it gets nice and solid again. That took about 2 minutes with the heat gun moving it around. And right now we're flattening this out. Let's see what we got. There's our flattened piece. Still really warm. Nice and flat. Got a little warm around there. We're going to cut this to make kind of an arc. Probably be 2 pieces. We may need to make another one of these. One for either side of the blade. And I made up 2 of these. I made up a second one. These are still warm. So we're going to have one on the top, one on the bottom. They'll be this way a little bit more. And I'm going to sandwich in here several layers of cut off PVC. And we're just going to glue it up into layers. Then the pin, a stainless steel eye bolt, is going to go through that and through the clamp on the back of the boat. As dimensions go, we're going to make the blade about 2 feet long. This is for light sailing in a small lake. These are not adhering to regulations or any kind of racing class. So they're saying about 25.5 here. We're going to be between 24 and 25. The angle, we'll try to approximate that. And we're going to go from there. This was, as mentioned earlier, just a piece of pine that I had started to cut down. The way this fits together, trying to do this with one hand, that slides in there, and then we're going to put either some PVC or a block in there for the stainless steel pin to go through. That's our progress so far. Instead of using PVC for here, I didn't like the way the glue was setting up, and I wanted something longer to have a mechanical connection here. This all needs to be epoxied. This is just finger tight right now, nothing is snug. But the way this works, stainless steel eye bolt goes through the bottom, so there's clearance for here as that turns around. The eye bolt will work with a shock cord, so there'll be a shock cord from down here up to here to hold the board down. But it can pivot up as need be. This will be cut off flush, so we've got room for a tiller to connect to the top. And we'll go from there. It's pretty solid, pretty strong right now. Very simple, very easy build. Really no cost to these materials. Very, very little cost. Most is just the hardware for 10 bucks, 12 bucks. The other is pretty much just scrap that was laying around. And these need to be sanded down and a blade put on here as well. We have our rudder here, the bottom part, as well as our attachment PVC bracket. The next thing is the tiller build. This was a scrap piece of plywood that was laying around. And just a couple minutes on the table saw, we narrowed this down. Next thing is to cut this out, and that's going to sit on the top of the rudder blade. A little thing I like to do sometimes, if I'm rounding off a corner, or if I have an angle to cut to take a piece out, is to use a circular or a hole cutter, and it just kind of gives it more of a finished look than trying to make a perfect line. This shows the rudder on the boat. Boat's obviously on an angle here, but this seems pretty balanced even on an angle here. It's easy to do with one finger. Another cool thing about having that eye bolt right there is you can kind of use that nut as a set for how low this is to the boat. So you can adjust it up a little bit or down a little bit. And for the other end, we'll build an extension here at some point. Make it a little bit easier to steer. So getting there. Just a real cheap option instead of spending a whole lot on regular parts. This is again for light use, a small lake. This is not ocean. This is not heavy weather stuff. If you're doing heavy weather, invest in something else. But I like building these things just to see if I can do them. But we're coming along. There's the finished rudder and tiller assembly. I put 2 heavy coats of epoxy on the tiller. It's pretty strong 3/4 inch plywood. The actual rudder blade is just pine with a couple heavy coats of polyurethane. And the rudder has been shaped so it's got more of a narrow bite. The dimensions are about approximate to what I saw online. They're not exact. This is not for racing, but just for recreational use. PVC pipe flattened, some stainless steel hardware, not too much. This is also a piece of pine with heavy coats of epoxy on the inside. And we're good to go here. This is for an extension arm that I'm still working on. But let's go ahead and throw this on the boat and show it there. That's the rudder assembly on the boat. I'm still working on a lot of other parts for this. So obviously we're sideways, we're leaning towards a tree. I built a dagger board, so that wood right there is just a holder. Still working on some of the rigging parts. But here's the rudder. Even on a sideways boat, it's pretty balanced. Everything seems pretty tight. And this arrangement has a couple other interesting adjustments. As this turns, it raises this nut, and then the tiller can come up a little bit. So you can avoid, I guess, the old tiller that was on this thing scratched it all up. So that's another adjustment. When this is all set, this can be lifted up, and then that comes up. Bring this back down, and then lock it back into this pin. And you're good to go. Things will be a little more balanced when we're not sitting sideways. So, just another affordable option. Good deal. Thanks very much for watching.